Muchachos y muchachas, Madonna, one of the biggest icons in our lifetime. She has transcended her music along with her fashion through the ages. I'd say up until recently, where she's really tried to stay edgy and in the limelight, in which has rather garnered her more controversy than anything. But speaking of controversy, something dark has followed her, and that is an allegation made by the Ethiopian Worldwide Federation. And the allegation is child T-wording. Like I said, very serious. So this sent me down a rabbit hole. I wanted to examine what are the allegations, what are some cross-examined prior reports that could point us to some sort of contextual clues. And I'll tell you, once you string all of this together, it paints a really dark, big, nasty picture, including some questions we must put out there about the ethics of her adoptions. We're going to go through all of this. Hold on to your butts, secure your wigs, stay right there. We're going to go through it. Really quick, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Boost the Wi-Fi. As you all know, especially in today's day and age, everybody's trying to gouge the dollar, including utilities and bill companies. Now, there are little workarounds you can implement, like devices like Boost the Wi-Fi, in which will help you maximize your Wi-Fi experience. It'll boost all the dead parts of your home by boosting the Wi-Fi signal. So therefore, you will get a more stabilized and maximized experience with your Wi-Fi. You can get it at boostthewifi.com. All right, so let's transcend through this rabbit hole of Madonna. And like I said, it is pretty serious. It's really sad. Let me just preface, there were parts of this that absolutely sent me into tears. Just because of the empathy that I had for particular individuals. We're going to go through this, but I just want to give you guys a trigger warning if it has anything to do with, adoption or foster care, anything like that. There might be themes that might resonate, so I just wanted to preface you with that. Okay, so let's take a look at these allegations. Now, the Ethiopian World Federation has made surprising petitions against Madonna, and the petitions and the allegations made are that of child T-wording and fear of social experiments rendered on Malawian children. And more accusations will resurface that have actually occurred throughout the years, but maybe because social media wasn't as active and mobilized, a lot of these claims never got circulated, but you will hear about them today. Now, to kind of prime you on what the Raising Malawi is, which is her organization, let me just take it straight from her website, where it states that the organization supports orphans and vulnerable children with critical resources, including education, medical care, food, shelter, and psychosocial support. That's right, psychosocial support. I personally had to look this up because I had no idea what psychosocial support is. And let me just, let me get to the definition and I'll give you my commentary. It says, involving both physiological and social aspects relating social conditions to mental health. So the first thing that I thought when I read the psychosocial support aspect of her organization, I just thought simply why, right? Because Malawi is so impoverished, their first concern should be basic needs such as food, clothes, water, education, right? Psychosocial nowadays means something completely different than what we might have interpreted it as in the prior years. But because we're so focused on the social aspect of our society, right? And we're at a cultural war with that, it just makes me look at this a bit more closer, which also coincides with the EWF's allegations against Madonna. So the Ethiopian Worldwide Federation is asking President Lazarus Chakwera to look into the intricacies, the infrastructure of her charity, Raising Malawi. There's concern over the integrity of her organization, what they do, what they're about, and what their facade might be. And what they're concerned about is that this is just a front to maybe exploit Malawian children. And specifically, This is from the 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘧𝘢 Times that actually had contact with the EWF. These are the allegations: child T-wording, sexual exploitation, sexual slavery, adoption reversal, threat of coercion, fraud, deception, and abuse of power or vulnerability. Now, what initially brought up these concerns, we're going to get into her book, which was, it was called SEX, it was very raunchy. But also what resurrects some of these concerns as well is the fact that, you know, as you'll see, many of these celebrities, they have to be so open about their sexuality online, and they have to put it in your face, right? And what would be considered taboo, you know, as early as the 90s and even early 2000s, right? We still considered all this taboo. Maybe not so much as earlier years, but still it was behind closed doors type of thing, right? This was not such a paraded aspect of your social life, your sexuality, right? Especially around children. Well, now on social media, all of these celebrities, you know, these governmental officials, things like this, they're trying to just parade this ideology all around. And so you've seen this with, you know, Madonna was actually one of the people to kick off, you know, this type of exhibition in front of the mass public. We saw her do it with, and, you know, various posts of her doing this, right, and music videos. It's exhausting, but obviously there is an open agenda to normalize this taboo. So the EWF has concerns over this because, you know, this was definitely an avoidable prerequisite to adopting Malawian children. And it even says, you know, within their penal code that, you know, the adoptive parent, or, you know, not necessarily the adoptive parent, but Malawians are not to exhibit, you know, that type of sexuality out in the open. It's actually penalized, right? And so with that in mind, and look, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to agree with that aspect, but those are their laws. And that's what they set as a prerequisite to, you know, anybody within their society to reside there and to take citizenship, things like this, right? And so if you could imagine, they also have some form of prerequisite for their adoptions, right? They're very focused on family values, despite them being impoverished. And so things like this are very shocking and very taboo to them. Okay, so we're gonna take it back to the book, the SEX book that Madonna put out in 1992. Now, I'm a 90s kid. Okay. And I already said it, you know, back in the 90s, in the early thousands, this was still kind of considered taboo. I know it was probably emerging around those eras of time, but still it was kind of like this, I can't, like, whoa, like, you know, if someone came out with that type of language or talked about it, it was still kind of bashful to receive it or to hear about it. Right. But of course I was a kid at the time. Now, she put out a book in the early 90s, 1992, called SEX. And this was a softcore porn book that had, I mean, images that you can find in 2023 that are very shocking. That was in this book, right? She was trying to normalize these taboos way back when. And so this caused a lot of controversy. Now, when she made this book, she actually signed a contract with Time Warner, who was the publishing company at the time, that forbade her from publishing things like CSAM, look it up, CSAM, bestiality, you know, very crude, you know, aspects of religious culture, things like this, right? They didn't want her to mix it up. So she signed it. She signed the contract. And then shortly after that, she founded a company called Maverick. Now, Maverick was her own self-published entity, right? So they published music, merchandise, books, everything like this. And so she signed a contract that partnered with Time Warner, which then nulled and voided her contract that forbade her from putting all those pieces of, you know, dirty content in her publishings. So then that meant that she had full creative control over whatever content she wanted to put out there. So this aspect is what concerns the EWF, because they are citing, and this is coming straight from the EWF as cited by the Nyasa Times. This is what it says. The petition further says psychology behind her ability to release child CSAM, basically religious imagery, bestiality, and vulgar P-word, has prompted her to open an orphanage in Malawi named Raising Malawi in 2006 to host social experiments on vulnerable African children in Malawi. So again, this is a very, very serious allegation that the EWF is making. So okay, so whilst me editing, this actually came up. This was an update to my thread on Twitter, where a user by the name of 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢 added that they had an excerpt from her book where it states here that sex with the young can be fun. This is from her book. Yes. And then it continues, if you're in the mood, if you're feeling impatient or you feel like you want someone else to take charge, do not have, you know what, with someone inexperienced, but it can be really AROUSING. One of the best experiences I ever had was with a inappropriately aged male. I think he was a VIRGIN. I think you guys get the picture, and if you want to, you always know you can pause this to read if you'd like. But once again, this is from one of my friends on Twitter who actually made a dig on this, and this is quite shocking. Again, even in 2023, I mean, I could imagine back in the 90s, but yeah, I mean, like, why is fantasizing about inappropriately aged people, humans, right? Why is this such a thing in Hollywood and the elite? Like, it just, like, if they don't want to be called these things, then why do they put this out there repetitively? So I could now see why the EWF had its concerns because of something like this. And then there's another excerpt here where, and of course I have to blur out some of the words because it is so explicit, but she talks about her nunu and how she compares it to a baby and how it smells like a baby and it's full of life. I mean, I'm telling you, these things are very depraved, and now I can understand why the EWF had its concerns. That's just my personal opinion, but you guys can look on to all the other things. This is just kind of like a cherry on top of all of the other things that I strung together in this video. So don't take just this and anchor your belief on just this, although it is shocking. Look at all the other things that I discover throughout the video. So basically what they are saying, and I'm not saying that this is right, but what they are saying is due to the psychology of her, turning around and nulling and voiding this contract that forbade her from creating all of this, vulgar content, bestiality, CSAM, things like that, putting that in her artworks, right? Music, the books, things like this, that psychology was on the same playing field of her starting her charity in 2006 called Raising Malawi, in which I believe what they're trying to allude to is that, this was like her source for children or for content, things like this, right? And that's the best way I'll put it. Now, they also cite that there was a very sharp questioning judge, and her name was Fiona Mawali. Now, this was further down the line with the latest adoption that Madonna made, but it does string a point that I want to make right now. Now, Judge Fiona, but she presided over Madonna's 2006 adoption application and seemed super sharp about her questioning. She really wanted to route out whether or not this was a very serious intention under the adoption of David Banda. We're going to get into that. Or, is she trying to steal children from Malawi? And that's just not my words. These are a quote. This is a quote. In determining her motives, I questioned the petitioner at length about the impact of her decision, which could be construed as robbing Malawi of its most precious resource, its children, Judge Fiona Mawali. Now, although Judge Fiona questioned Madonna very sharply, Madonna was able to actually successfully adopt her child, David Banda, at that time. So, which brings us into the next transcendence, a closer look at the Malawian children that Madonna adopted throughout the years. And we're going to start with David Banda. Now, I'm just to set another preface, and of course this has to do with children, this has to do with ethics, so I have to do this periodically with some of these videos. This gets very upsetting, okay? Now, David Banda was adopted in 2006, the same year that Madonna founded Raising Malawi, her own charity. And it all could illustrate why this is such a big concern with the EWF. What caused me to look a lot closer into the situation with the adoptions are newly surfaced allegations that David Banda's father put out with the EWF's concerns. Now, the newly surfaced allegations, according to the EWF, are that Madonna falsely accused David Banda's father of being absent when she was applying to adopt him. That is from the Nyasa Times, right? So the Nyasa Times, once again, spoke to the EWF to get this information. Now, I did a bit of digging and I found this People article 2006, which detailed that there was some sort of drama with Madonna's adoption. Take a look at this photo. Now, this is something that I pieced together. I found it online where it notes that there were a lot of controversies. Let's take a look at the captions. For instance, on the top left, it says Madonna's adoption controversy. And then on the bottom left, it says, as Madonna and her husband, 𝐿𝐴 welcome home their new 13-month-old son from Malawi, local human rights groups and some of the boy's relatives raised questions over the legality of the adoption. And there you can see Madonna pictured with Malawi children. Now, there are some details in this little snippet on the right hand side. I'm gonna actually put that on screen, so if you want to pause the video and read the snippet, you can. Now, 𝘐𝘐 is the father of David Banda, baby David Banda that got adopted by Madonna. Now, 𝘐𝘐 spoke publicly about his concerns in 2016 when Madonna split with her ex, 𝘐�ＲICHie. At the time, her teenage son, biological son, Rocco, refused to go back home with her, Madonna, which was curious. Now, before I go into that, actually, let me clock back to the little snippet because there is a little piece of information that I find pretty useful, as it'll paint a pattern. But at the very end, it does mention that Madonna promised to bring David Banda back home and back to Malawi for a visit. And it was some time until she actually brought David Banda back to Malawi to visit his family. And it gets even more dramatic. It states here that 𝘐𝘐 even claimed that he didn't even think that 𝘐�ＲICHie, Madonna's ex, was even interested in adopting David at the time. So there's a last sentence here, and this is from the Mirror once again. That he said that was really damning in, this discovery and research, where it's quoted, "It was Madonna who wanted to take David to live with her. The only reason I let Madonna adopt David was because she promised me she would give him a good education and then he could come home to live with me." Now, this paints a pattern later. Just hold on to that note. Now, the Nyasa Times then goes into more allegations made by the EWF, stating Madonna is being accused of using David Banda for sexual exploitation and social experiments today. Pictures are awash on social media of David Banda wearing female clothes, makeup, and wearing earrings, whilst the two holding hands like two lovers. Now, I do want to pause here a little bit to tell you why this is a bit controversial. Now, like I mentioned, Madonna has a biological son by the name of Rocco. You don't see the type of, dresses and feminization, emasculation of Rocco the way you see it with David Banda. And this does kind of carve out another entryway to another rabbit hole when it comes to other celebrities that have adopted children from third world countries and later down the line have maybe influenced their lifestyle to wear dresses and things like that. We'll save that for another day. But I wanted to actually show you this video of a TikTok creator by the name of 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢𝘴. And she makes some pretty interesting, curious points as well as opinions as to her observations on Madonna adopting David Banda.
Madonna has been accused of running child trafficking in Malawi and sexual exploitation of...
So guys, can we talk for a minute? OMG, I stumbled across this and I had to stitch this because I'm like, finally people are getting it. I have been talking about Charlize Theron and Madonna for the longest. And the reason why I have a problem with these women, these Hollywood women, they have been taking our African boys and bringing them to the West only to emasculate them and probably use them for their sick and twisted agenda. And they need to be exposed. Okay? My problem with Madonna, she has been parading her adopted son, David Banda, making this boy wear women's clothing, dresses, you know, the whole 9 yards. And she has a biological son, Rocco. Why isn't she not having that same energy on her biological son? Come on, make it make sense, man. Why isn't she having that energy? She's so freely going to tabloids talking about, oh, my son looks better in my clothes than I do. What the? And then not only that, have you seen how young the men Madonna has been, you know, having relations with? It seems like the more men that she gets in her life, the younger they are becoming. If I'm not mistaken, I think the last guy that she had was somewhere between the age of 23, 27. And it's like, man, they're just getting younger and younger. People need to start opening their eyes. And then you've got Charlize Theron as well. She adopted her oldest son, now changed him into a girl. And it's like, you're doing this for the sole purpose of trying to emasculate these boys, these black boys from Africa, bringing them here to the West just for your sick and twisted purpose. These guys need to be exposed. You know, this is so sick. And it just breaks my heart, because these kids have been taken out of their cultural environment, away from their families. All for what? They need to be exposed.
And very valid points that she made. Okay, so from here, we're going to transcend into the next adoption that Madonna made, and that is of Mercy James. Now, this particular story, or the stories that I uncovered about Mercy James, absolutely infuriated me. It sent me into tears, and you'll see why. Now, the pictured woman you see with Mercy James as a baby is her grandmother, Lucy. Shortly after adopting David, Madonna petitioned to adopt Mercy, but she was rejected. So she hired a team of lawyers. They took it up to the Supreme Court, and after appeals, she finally won. Mercy's grandmother, Lucy, gave some really heartbreaking testimony on her side. You see, Lucy's daughter died shortly after giving birth to Mercy, and Lucy earns very little by selling fruit on the roadside, and so she could not care for the needs of her sickly baby granddaughter, Mercy. And so she opted to put her in an orphanage until ideally she reached grade school, in which she would take her granddaughter back. You know, there were extra needs that Mercy actually had, and you know, these were needs that were a bit more costly than what Lucy earned. So this is where Madonna came into the picture, because Madonna basically, you know, illustrated this lifestyle for Mercy that, she would take care of Mercy, give her the best care and all these things. And according to Mercy's family, which included Lucy and Lucy's sons, which were Mercy's uncles, they only agreed that Madonna would adopt her up until grade school age, and then she would be returned. And up until then, it was also a verbal contract that Madonna would bring Mercy back to her family, to Malawi, to visit at least every 2 years. Now, here's the thing that gets really screwed up. So Madonna did return back to Malawi with Mercy, but she returned back to Malawi with Mercy and avoided Mercy's family. She avoided Mercy's grandmother and her uncles. And this is where it gets a lot more heartbreaking, because her grandmother was actually dying, and it was her dying wish to have a visit from Mercy and to see her one last time before she died, in which Madonna refused. And it's evidenced here in various articles, including the Daily Mail, where they documented, a banter between Madonna's lawyer and there was a civil liberties campaigner by the name of 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢𝘴, who tried to represent Mercy's family, in which they were not successful. They said, and I quote, that there was no legal right to see her, to see Mercy. And again, it just kind of reiterates the social contract that they say that they had. They said that they were guaranteed regular contact with Mercy, who was 5 at the time, and that there was initial resistance to the adoption until, it seemed to be that they were convinced that this was the best thing to do. So I'm going to read out this part from the civil liberties campaigner 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢𝘴, where she states in this article, "Last week, Ms. 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢𝘴 said of the case, Mercy's family have met me several times over the past year, and they have been very upset. They have a strong recollection of being told that they would be able to see Mercy and have regular contact with her, and that when she is an adult, she will return to live with them in Malawi. I believe they have a case in law because there appears to have been a verbal contract between them and Madonna's representatives. I have already consulted a lawyer on their behalf. Obviously, there could be problems as there is no written agreement, but the lawyer is looking into it. I'm preparing a letter which will appear to Madonna's lawyer, Alan Shanula, to intervene on the family's behalf and ask Madonna to kindly let Mercy meet her family. None of us desire an embarrassing and expensive court case which could humiliate or inconvenience Madonna. The best outcome would be a proper agreement to let Mercy meet her family on a regular basis." And basically that was not successful. Madonna basically dodged the requests by her family. And the thing is, this is the banter. Like, this is the banter. It's documented. They wanted to enter into, legal requests and petitions to simply see Mercy, their family member, her granddaughter, right? And this is the part that absolutely infuriated me. So there was some outcries through some media outlets in which Lucy actually appeared through. And I'm just going to read some of these because these are what absolutely sent me to ugly tears. Like, I was ugly crying about this part. A mix of a lot of emotions because of how much heartbreak that this seemed to have caused this grandmother. Listen to this. This is from Mamma Mia, where they quote Lucy. Her last name is 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢𝘴, where it says, 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢𝘴 is concerned that she will not see her granddaughter again before she dies. Quoted saying, "I'm old and ill and anything could happen. I want to see her before it's too late. I'm heartbroken and think of her every day. I'm asking Madonna to bring Mercy to see me next time she comes. Please bring my granddaughter to me." There was a family friend in which was quoted saying, "The Mercy situation is potentially a bigger problem than the custody battle over Rocco," which is a whole other rabbit hole, right? I think I mentioned Rocco didn't want to go home with Madonna, which then caused, his father, David Banda's father, to question what was going on behind closed doors. But anyway, This was saying that Madonna may have been acting in good faith. Basically, Madonna might have been sold a certain narrative about Mercy and her lifestyle, but she wasn't told the whole truth. It's difficult to put into words the love that Mercy's Malawian family have for her. They have loved her so much and never have intended to be permanently separated from her. For them, it is a battle they will not stop fighting. Madonna needs to understand that as Mercy grows older and becomes aware of these things, it may not be good for her and all parties concerned. Now, Madonna spokesperson denies that Mercy lost touch with her African roots, in which the representative is quoted saying, Mercy has never had her past or her heritage hidden from her, and she visits, right? But it doesn't address the main concern of her family, right? Okay, like you say that she's not separated from her African roots, but the concern is her family, her Malawian family that loves her so much that they want to see her. There's more quotes that just absolutely are heartbreaking. Now, this is Lucy again, who said that most of the time she blends, this is from Face of Malawi, that most of the time Lucy blends tears with prayers, that just once I should physically see or touch the little girl. It's sad that I am completely cut off from any access or visual glance of Mercy, my grandchild. I am not saying that she should come back to us to stay, no, but just for once before I die, should I set my eyes on her so that my spirit is rejuvenated? Should I really die without seeing her? Oh God, exclaimed the old lady, her face showing all traces of depression and dejection. It's that wonder of mystery, like what happened, right? Like, did Madonna ever take Mercy to go see her grandmother? Her grandmother, like, my worst fear of through reading this story is that her grandmother died of a broken heart, and Madonna could have alleviated some of that by just simply taking Mercy back to her Malawian family to just visit her grandmother. The fact that she was so that even for years, if it was for years that she didn't take Mercy back to see her grandmother, that she dodged her family intentionally, that is what infuriates me, that this was such a cold act of neglect for a family's wishes, right? That is what absolutely angers me. So I don't quite know what happened. I haven't found any updates on Lucy, whether or not she passed away. I would imagine that she did if she was on her deathbed, as I did see that many headlines did detail. But that is what absolutely leaves me infuriated. And then we move on to the next adoption children. And those were twins named Esther and Stella, in which I came across one account from their father that stated that he had no idea that the adoption would be permanent. Here is an old Instagram post, which, by the way, right now, January 17, 2023, Madonna completely wiped out her Instagram account. The media is saying it's because she's gearing up to tour and she's going to do, I don't believe that personally, but yeah, she wiped out her entire account. But this is an old post in which it reads, I can officially confirm I have completed the process of adopting twin sisters from Malawi, and I am overjoyed they are now part of our family. I am deeply grateful to all those in Malawi who helped make this possible, and I ask the media to please respect our privacy during this transitional time. Thank you also to my friends, family, and very large team for all your support and love. Adam Mawali is the biological father to the twins, Esther and Stella. And he came out to the Daily Mail back in 2017, and which is when the adoption took place, and basically said that he had no idea that this was a permanent adoption. So this is basically the headline that was made. Madonna has taken my girls forever. This cannot be true. Pictured for the first time, the twins' father said he didn't realize their adoption was permanent. And this is not anything unique throughout these adoption processes, which is why I am looking at this really sideways and questioning what Madonna knew and what Madonna's intent and motives were. Why did she, basically ignore some of these family members? Then there were some family members that didn't even realize what was going on. So according to 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘦, he gave, once again, this exclusive interview to the Daily Mail. He said, and they say, speaking for the first time since Madonna began the process of adopting the twins, the 40-year-old farmer dismissed as lies a court contention that he had abandoned the girls after their mother died in childbirth. So basically he said that, the court, there was a community, including the courts, that actually lied. As per his account, he's saying that the courts lied and basically enabled this entire adoption process of the girls. I'm going to read a little bit more. It says, Mr. Mwali's account of how he had done all he could to care for his family was backed up by the chief of his remote rural village. So there was a witness account there. The chief basically backed him up. Mr. Mwali said, I was told from the very start that Esther and Stella were going to a rich woman's home abroad and that she would give them a good education, then return them to me to live with me and help all of my family. Now you're telling me that the adoption is permanent. That cannot be true. I don't want it to be true. I am their father and I will always be their father. Now, it says here, and this could give us a clue as to how this whole if it was an operation, this operation was happening. But it says here, or at least the network, it says Mr. Mwali first learned of Madonna's interest in the girls last May when he was invited to their orphanage, Home of Hope, outside the Malawian capital, Lilongwe. Later in the article, it also says that he was told that Madonna would act like a sort of foster mom to the children, and he was encouraged by the orphanage boss to proceed with the whole adoption procedure. The article also attests more and more to the, experience that he had, that, of course, after his wife died, which is why he had such trouble raising the girls by himself. Again, Malawi is impoverished, right? There are lifestyles that we could never even imagine or fathom that people have to live through, right? And so these are desperate times. He actually couldn't watch the girls himself, so that's why he put them at the orphanage until, once again, kind of similar to Lucy's situation, until they reached grade school. Now, it says here that, that the village, his community actually supported him, and once again gives another attestation of the Kayembe village chief, Kawili, that said that despite being poor and troubled, that the community tried to actually help the widow, help Adam with, the needs that he had at that time. This is a quote from Adam where he says, I used to cycle down a dirt road, taking 2 hours each way. I brought little dresses and gifts for them, and they would sit on my lap, one twin on either side, and laugh and play with me. They called me Ababa, daddy in Malawi language, Chichewa. As I was doing some research on this dig, I found this piece of information, and I find it very weird if it is true. This is from the Times, where it states, that Madonna's interest in Malawi began in 2006 when she secretly visited a number of orphanages there. And I just find it very strange that the Times would use secretly in this description, that she secretly visited a number of orphanages there. According to Hollywood lore, she had been encouraged to adopt an African child by Brad Pitt, a close friend of her then husband Guy Ritchie, and was said to be so moved by what she saw in Malawi that she got out her checkbook straight away, offered tens of thousands of dollars to individual NGOs, which it cuts off there, but this would answer a lot of questions if we knew specifically what NGOs. So stay put. I might do another video on this. I don't know. This is again, another rabbit hole. But then there are the Malawian schools that Madonna attempted to, build in Malawi. And this honestly had me scratching my head. Why would she want to do this? So she actually wanted to build 10 schools. But the weird part about this is that the Malawian government, Malawian? Is it Malawian? I apologize if I've been pronouncing this completely wrong the entire way. But the Malawian government actually became fed up with Madonna. This is from MSNBC News, actually, where they account that Malawi's government on Tuesday accused Madonna, this was back in 2012, of not consulting over plans to build 10 new schools in the poor southern African state, and said the singer seemed more interested in promoting her global image than helping with education. The singer, who had adopted 2 children from Malawi at that time, in January, her Raising Malawi charity was teaming up with a nonprofit group called Build On to construct the schools, which would educate at least 1,000 children a year. Malawi's Ministry of Education spokesman 𝘵𝘬𝘮𝘢 told Reuters that the government was fed up with Madonna. 𝘏𝘬𝘮 said that the singer last year scrapped a previously planned academy for girls in Malawi, alleging mismanagement and cost overruns, and didn't inform the Malawian authorities. Now she decides to announce that she plans on building 10 schools without getting authority from us again. So, you know, this is another question, like, why would Madonna want to build 10 schools? Like, that's the top question. Why would you want to build 10 schools? But on top of that, build 10 schools and then not inform the authorities, right? And then think that you're above the authorities to a point where you feel entitled to do this. Like, it's just strange to me. But it gets even stranger. Now, I've stated this multiple times throughout the video that Malawi is very impoverished, right? So it becomes a question as to why they mismanaged their funds on things like, for instance, salaries and cars, office space, golf course memberships, free housing, and a car and a driver for the school's director. All right. And in which it becomes even more questionable because it seemed to be that the religious society she was included in or was participating in was Kabbalah. And so a lot of Hollywood and society circles in Hollywood were actually supportive of this Raising Malawi or this project in Malawi of Madonna's until they mismanaged all the funds and decided to scrap the entire project. There was some controversy that was kind of tied to her co-founder, Michael Berg, not him particularly, but because it was like, you know, the Kabbalah Society was supporting this project. Michael Berg was a co-founder of Raising Malawi. His brother actually was in a lot of, it was a big controversy. He was alleged and accused to have intoxicated a young lady in order to do things with her, in which the court founded him that he needed to basically pay up $177,500 to this victim. So that's what the jury ordered, in which would insinuate that they found something wrong, especially in Los Angeles. Like, they found something really wrong with all this. So as you can see, this was a very lengthy rabbit hole that we just went down, and I come out more infuriated, concerned, and just angry at the system, angry at the elites for thinking that they are so entitled that they can just rip families apart, which in this situation, that's what it seemed like to me, in my personal opinion, that these families were yearning for their children. Even David Banda's, a testimony leader came out and said that he didn't know that Madonna was actually adopting his child, along with Mercy's family and along with Esther and Stella's father. Like, these people seem to be blindsided by, this hope that there was someone who was wealthy and wanted to booster their child's life experience, only to learn that that child was going to be permanently whisked away. And, this is what really just makes me so angry about this entire situation. So those are the allegations, along with the moral questions that the EWF might have. Of course, they have only stated things and named some examples, but this was also a rabbit hole that I felt like I needed to go down to understand why there were such avid concerns against Madonna. Now, I want to know what your thoughts are on all of this. Did you know this about her adoptions? Did you read up on the family testimonies in the past? Of course, like I said, because social media has really mobilized this information a lot more, a lot more circulatory than before, when we only relied on tabloids and newspapers, by print, right, and by TV. Now we have the information at our fingertips, which makes it easier for us to compile it and understand a bigger picture. So let me know what you guys think. Of course, as always, I always post these things on my social media accounts. Twitter, you can follow my Twitter as well as my Instagram account. So with that being said, I appreciate your support. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I will catch you all in the next video. Bye-bye.